Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Leadership Boy podcast. I'm Enrique Vince, my co-host, and today I'm excited because we get to find out about a very popular program. We're back at the nation's capital, and we're so excited. Vince will introduce.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm excited as well. Happy August, our listeners. Ladies and gentlemen, you're in for a treat. In our lineup of dynamic guests today, we have joining us Mark Holman. He's from the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area, and he is the vice president of partnerships for the Resilience Building Leaders Program. A mouthful, but it's amazing what it can do. But first, let's dive in and talk a little bit about who the gentleman is that we have today. Mark, tell us about you.
Well, thanks, Vince. I appreciate that, and I appreciate being on your podcast. This is an amazing podcast, and as I've said before, I love the name of your podcast. It speaks volumes to the universe we live in. So, thank you. First of all, as Vince said, my name is Mark Holman. I am the VP of Partnerships at Resilience Building Leader Program. I've been with the company since we stood up in 2018. I started on late 2018 or 2019, and with the organization, and it's been an amazing opportunity. I myself, I obviously was born and raised in Kentucky, and then family moved about several times, and then I joined the Marine Corps, and I spent 28 years in the Marine Corps as a retired Master Gunnery Sergeant, 28 in 2010, and then went to the private sector, and I worked for a Fortune 200 company as a program, project, and operations manager, and various contracts ranging from 22 million to 1.5 billion, and figuring what managing 3,200 people look like in 4 states. So challenges just kept coming, which I loved. I resigned from there, obviously a couple of years ago, and then connected with Dr. Gene Coughlin, who's our CEO and founder at Resilience Building Leader Program, and started having a conversation, and then he had asked me to come aboard the team. And of course, it's a startup, right? So you start a company, and one of the things I always joke with people and say, look, if you go to work for a startup, it's amazing. You know, everything's new, everything's different, and you're creating things as you go. But one thing you can't walk in as a leader to a startup is an ego, right? You may be the guy writing processes, you may be having client meetings, and the next day it's your turn to dump the trash. Okay, that's just the way it works. Okay, so you can't be too full of yourself, and you have to have some humility as a team member and as a leader. Okay, and that's important. So that's basically about me and where I come from, Vince.
Yeah, that's outstanding. I love startups. They truly have my heart because you're right. That's where you can actually cultivate what a company will look like in the future. So good on you guys for joining forces and having the RBLP, which I'll kindly refer to now.
Right, there you
from
go.
now on. But so speaking about RBLP, I've seen it in action. I've seen it abroad. I see a lot of my veteran friends going and getting that designation, getting that qualification. So tell us a little bit more about RBLP itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And RBLP, I mean, we are a credentialing body for the Resilience Building Leadership Professional certifications. And we offer 3 levels of certification. One is for frontline supervisors, and then the second is for middle managers, and the third is for senior leaders in organizations. And our purpose at RBLP is we say, you know, we understand that collective resilience is essential for organizational learning and change. Our purpose is to share this truth with leaders everywhere. Our mission at RBLP is to identify and certify people that are ready to build resilient teams and lead them in challenging environment. Our vision at the end of this is we envision a worldwide community of practice committed to the idea of building resilient teams. This company was founded by our CEO, Dr. Gene Coughlin, as I mentioned earlier. And basically, Dr. Gene, one of the things that he did is through his dissertation to earn his PhD, his focus was collective resilience. And what was interesting is when he dove into this research, There is resilience, individual resilience, and there's collective resilience. And what he found was there was a lot of research done on individual resilience, but ironically, what he came across was the majority, if not all of it, the huge proportion of it, was on children about individual resilience, not so much about adults, just very slight bit that he could come across. Then he started digging deeper for collective resilience, and here's what he found. He couldn't find any to actually appear anywhere until after 9/11 in our country. So if you think about the impact that had, that nobody was really looking into what collective resilience looks like. Now, I always say this, that folks who have served in the military, those who have worked as, first responders or teams, or whether it be fire, police, we work in teams, those type of things. For us in the military, it's kind of funny, I always joke about this, but I say, when you stepped off that bus at basic training or at officer candidate school, you figured out in about 48 hours, and a switch went on in your head and says, oh my gosh, I am not going to make it through this by myself. We're going to have to pull together. So from that day, it was infused into our DNA. And then everything we did from that point forward was about moving as a team, moving as a group, as a unit, whether that be a deployment, whether it be a training exercise. We always had each other's back, and we shared that responsibility and solved problems as a team. This certification and the body of this gets into just that, about collective resilience. So, basically at RBLP, Dr. Gene also came across something interesting in his research, that when you build resilient teams as a leader, you might only have 4 employees in your team. But what you find over time, they start executing like 4.5 and sometimes even 5 team members, okay, because of the output and the resilience they have built as a team. And they can persevere through organizational change as well. So, the other part is, we do have 4 core values at RBLP that I think it's important to share. Number 1 is to take care of our employees first and foremost. The second one is to take care of our community, our customers always. And number 3 is to take care of our community along the way. And our 4th core value here at RBLP is to learn every day. So we genuinely believe here that, you're done with all your learning when you are done in life. Okay. Until then, we just continue to learn and take on new opportunities each day to figure out how to be a little bit wiser or more aware of certain things.
I love that whole, it's within our DNA, because it's true. In fact, all of us 3 served, and it was a switch that went off. Some for us in 10 minutes, some in 48 hours, as you mentioned. But it's great to understand the collective whole to move towards the mission. And I'm loving hearing about RBLP, what it's doing. So thank you for sharing about the program. So how are you all holding up in the current pandemic, or what have you done since then?
Yeah, so it's a great question, because look, that's a spot on question, because in the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, the world as we knew it changed dramatically, right, for all of us. And I think for businesses, they went through a lot of turmoil and churn, and they had to face organizational change unexpected. It wasn't planned, it came upon them, and there we were. At RBLP, we have weathered that pretty well. I'm happy to report, because our business model from the beginning was, when we provide the exam prep training for folks to prepare for their certification exam, it has all been one-on-one virtually via Teams or Zoom. Okay, so there's, I don't need to sit in a room. I don't need to show up at a place. Our company is based out of Burbank, California, and as Vince mentioned at the top of the show, I'm located in the DC, Baltimore area. So yeah, I work remote. I have a nice office in my house. It works really well. The commute's not too bad. Okay, but yeah, I mean, that's basically what we did, and we continue to go forward with that.
And I loved how you guys have inadvertently strategized to just be right spot on for the world episode, right? This thing has
Hmm.
covered the entire world, and you
Absolutely.
guys were poised and positioned to capitalize on even such an event. And so,
Hmm.
congratulations to you guys for having that set up beforehand. Now, undoubtedly, from here we go towards the future. There's a lot of things that are going to happen with RBLP. I'm
Hmm.
excited to learn about them here today. But for the listeners out there, what's on the horizon for you guys? What are you guys planning? What are you guys doing now?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question, Enrique. Right now, RBLP, we just started moving within the last month and a half towards something that we had really kind of planned for in sort of a 5 to 10 year vision statement and plan that we had in place with objectives and goals. And it's come premature, but it's a good news story because RBLP, what we're doing is we're moving into taking on authorized training partners. Okay. RBLP currently provides exam prep training, and as we progress to bring on ATPs, there will come an eventuality where RBLP, as the credentialing body for the 3 series of certifications, leadership certifications, we will not provide exam prep training. Okay, our authorized training partners will do that, and interesting enough, it's kind of an interesting dynamic because there's a lot of people who have actually started their own company, either as a sole proprietor, an LLC, or a corporation, and they have come on board and they are providing the exam prep training through their company. So probably the easiest comparison I would give you is take the PMI 40 years ago. 40 years ago, the Project Management Institute, they actually did PMP exam prep training, and they were the credentialing body for the PMP, PGMP, and so on. Okay. And then down that journey, fast forward to take 40 years later. Okay. The PMI doesn't do any exam prep training whatsoever as a credentialing body. They do have about 3,300 authorized training partners, okay, on their website. You can go and look at it. So that is sort of the model that we're following, that as a credentialing body, because the sort of the rules and requirements when you are the credentialing body are a bit different than if you're an ATP. Your latitude is not as wide, and so you have to be within scope. And as you progress and grow, you want to get to that scope set. And that's what we're doing as a company. And we're really excited about it. We have 6, actually right now we have 7 total, but 6 are actually authorized training partners who are providing exam prep training to clients who want to earn their RBLP certification. And we just partnered with Pepperdine University, where they have taken this curriculum of ours and they are teaching it in their graduate school program. Okay, they're offering this to students if they would like to take it. And obviously at Pepperdine, folks would sign up for a class like you do as a college student, and you can select this class. And when you're done, they don't necessarily have to sit for the certification. However, they do earn a certificate of completion of going through the program. And if they wanted to, then they can come to us to actually sit and earn their actual certification for the level that they were found qualified. Okay, so that's the direction we're going. We are in conversations with other ATPs that are looking to come aboard. And it's interesting because when you find people, because one of the other requirements, other than being a company, you have to have an employee at your company who's what we call resilience building leadership professional trainer level, which is the top level certification, in order to provide that to all levels that you might encounter. And what you find interesting about, and as you mentioned on LinkedIn and some other areas where people have commented, and even, I mean, we even have a community of practice on LinkedIn for those who are certified at whatever level, okay, to share leadership suggestions, ideas, and things they come across. And what we find is that those who are RBLPT certified, they get it. They get what building resilient teams looks like. And so they are awesome. They have an extensive leadership background. They have knowledge of the program. So we're looking forward to it. We know that and the reason we approve them and love to have them come aboard is because they're going to be awesome and they're going to take care of clients to impart that leadership knowledge and wisdom in order to earn their certification. So we're really excited about the whole venture.
We're excited as well because this is awesome that you're going to provide this. So obviously, university level, all the way to the corporate and hopefully nonprofit level. So that's great. I say you guys wrote the song and you're giving people the rights to use the lyrics. So
there you go.
so let's talk about higher education. Let's talk about professional development, hence the leadership void.
Right.
Let's transition a little bit here and talk a lot about your leadership capabilities. So for yourself, Mark, what professional development areas do you work on to improve your capabilities as a leader?
No, that is a great question. I would have to start by saying, because we're all a work in progress, right? Okay, so I would say taking a breath, pausing, engaging active listening, especially when pressures mount on a timeline, a deadline, or whatever you're dealing with, to sort of breathe, take that little pause, and then ask some clarifying and confirming questions before you engage. Okay. Because my nature is, you could probably appreciate this. When you've seen it, done it like probably 1,000 times, your instinct is just to go, oh, well, let me tell you what's going on with that. Take a breath, step back, and go, that's interesting discovery. Tell me more about that. When did you first see that? What led you to that conclusion, right? Because I want to understand more before I just think I have all the answers, because the more experience we get is really great, but sometimes it can work against us if we don't pause, impart the humility. You haven't seen everything. You think you have, but you haven't, because something new will be created each day. And then having that conversation, the book by John Maxwell, I've read, is Good Leaders Ask Great Questions, right? And that's really, there's power in that a lot of people just kind of miss, and their ego takes over, and we're all human, so we have to kind of keep that in check. But seniority and experience doesn't always mean you have all the answers, and just pausing and breathing and relaxing a moment. And then the other thing I think I work to is reading as much as I possibly can, given the time of day that I have. So that, always trying to read something, to go, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way before. So I would probably nail down those two things.
And those are wonderful things. I'm a subscriber to John Maxwell myself, so I enjoyed most of the things that he has put out. And as you well stated, right? You have to take those pauses, and you also have to get learned on your end through reading and through exposure to other perspectives, right? Because that's really where we grow. And so having learned those things as you have gone on as a leader, and undoubtedly you don't get to master guns just by sitting around, right?
Right.
You got taught something, you took it on, and then you applied it. So
Right.
what are some of those things that you were taught, you were advised on, that you say, those are golden nuggets that'll take me a long way, that you adopted, that you can now tell somebody else that's coming up, right? I want to
Yeah.
be a master gun one time, or I want to be a leader, at a company. What would you tell them?
I think probably, I mean, it's a great question. And when I kind of go back in the recesses of my mind, I pause for a moment and go, oh yeah, there was an aha moment. The first thing that sticks out for me is when I was pulled aside as a young leader, and it was my first engagement at leading a team. And I was stressing over certain things, and I remember this senior leader pulled me aside and says, "Hey, come here, come here, crazy, talk to me." And I said, "Yes, sir." He's like, "First of all, let's be clear. No one ever perfects leadership. Okay, let's get that straight right now. You're never going to perfect it. Okay. However, you must strive every day to become as close to perfect as you possibly can. Okay. And I went, huh. So, okay. I was trying to be perfect, and perfect doesn't really exist, but your job now is to work every day to get to as close to perfect as you can see, okay, and achieve. Uh, and he followed that up by saying, we're all a work in progress, okay? We're human beings, we're not machines. So as long as you're working every day to become better and listen and clarify and ask a couple of questions before you dive into things and assume a lot, you're going to be much better off. You're going to develop a better team. The climate within your team is going to be better, and that's going to be important. The second one that triggers in my head is learning how to delegate responsibility and empower decision making to your team members, right? Um, and we say delegate that responsibility, right? And so, very often in your military career coming up, you'll hear things like, "Oh, you can delegate, the authority, but you can't delegate the responsibility." Sure, you can. You can delegate responsibility. I have learned post my career retirement that you can delegate response. You can make people respond. Now, ultimately, let's be honest here. At the end of the day, the buck stops here. If it goes south, you are accountable. That you don't get a free pass on that. However, I can delegate responsibility to somebody to get something done. I can give them, here's what I need, here's why I need it. Go figure out how to make that happen. Here's some variables you need to consider. I'm here, if you have any questions, it go be amazing. And so once you delegate that, your team starts learning. And it was funny because in that instance, how it came about was I was in my MOS. I was working very hard to learn. I was the MOS geek, right? I would read the manuals. I'd read this. I'd read that. And it was funny because, like, I knew coming up to get to this point, I knew the MOS. I knew my job. I knew how it was done, what needed to be done, so forth, so on. So I thought I had the way things get done, okay? Just by working very hard to be spot on. And it was funny because I got pulled up one day and same individual and says, "Hey, let me ask you a question. Do you ever plan on going on vacation and taking any leave?" "Well, yeah, absolutely." "Do you ever plan on getting promoted?" "Well, yeah, absolutely." "Well, let me help you. If you do not delegate responsibility and empower decision making to your team, I don't know if I could ever sign off on your vacation and leave, and I'm not sure I need you promoted because if you leave here, the place will fall apart." Okay. Although you look at this as an asset, I promise you're becoming a liability because only one person is not the team. And they have to learn on their own, because the last thing he left with me as he walked out, he said, "You do know that your way is a way. It's not the way. There are many ways things can get accomplished. So think about that." And I said, "Well, he goes, not a discussion. Just wanted to drop that on you. I'm gone. Have a good night." And that was it. I went, And I'll tell you, that stuck in my brain. And it took me, even after that, probably a good 2 months to let go and put the trust that they could go out. And I'll tell you, you want to talk about an aha moment? Doing that, I started to find they came back with more efficient ways than the way I was doing it and thought it was the way. And I was like, okay, humility check. I'm okay with that. They found a better way. But it's incumbent upon leaders to start building that within their team. And that was a lesson I was taught early on. And luckily I was able to turn loose of that. And it's amazing how your blood pressure points go down too by 10, 20 points, okay, when that happens. So just to say, all right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Your health does become a lot more your own versus, the hospital. So, or
Right.
the coffee cup or the, the other beverages of choice.
Right. Right.
But definitely empowering those decisions and letting go of your own ego, your own pride.
Mm-hmm.
But those those are great tips. Obviously, the active listening is great. School of Hard Knocks is always good to hear from and learn from. And how do you, Mark, handle challenges either you're currently facing or have faced in the past?
Well, I would say that, you know, I don't want to sound redundant here, but breathe, pause a bit, think, and then collaborate. Begin planning and work through what is known as an experiential learning model, right? When a team is working through something, and I say a team, not sequestered in your office with the door shut and the blinds pulled and nobody come in because I'm going to solve everything. But you've got to get your team engaged. So if you think about it in an experiential learning model, what you do is if you know the model and you become familiar with it, you have a concrete experience that occurs. The situation happened, challenges going on, this maybe is not working right. The first step you want to do is you want to pull your team in, and depending on how your team is structured, you want somebody from each section. If you have multiple skill sets on your team, bring them to the table, and by creating a psychologically safe environment that people can feel comfortable speaking up and sharing ideas is what's very, very important for a leader in that climate with the team. And what you want to do is you want to start asking questions. Okay, team, listen up. Here's what we got. Here's what we encountered. I want to hear from you. What went well, what didn't go so well, and what do you think we could do instead? Okay, have that frank, honest conversation. And then through their vision, through their views of what they see, they can see something's not working on their end, and they would suggest X. Okay, and I would jot that on to a turn chart or a dry erase board or whatever, and then we go down through it. And then once everybody has some say so. Now during this reflective observation, this is not a finger pointing session, and this is why we talk about we treat each other with respect on this team. It's not about, well, hey, had Carl had only done this and Sally had done that. No, that's not what we're here to do. We noticed a lag in here. We're not sure why that's occurring, but it was causing us to sit idle for up to 20 minutes before we saw the next transaction come through. Okay, let's talk about that. Let's get the IT involved. Let's have this discussion. What are we doing? What are we seeing? Lag in processes or something? Okay, got it. And then when you're all done and you've collected that, this is where you get to abstract conceptualization on the experiential learning model. This is where a leader has to have the moral courage to sit there and make a decision. And everybody who's listening, and perhaps Vince and Enrique, you have been in a meeting where somebody said, hey, what's a great idea? What can we do? And you offered a suggestion, a recommendation, and then it got to the point where somebody needed to basically slap the table as a leader and go, okay, we're taking Vince's idea and Enrique's idea, and we're going to put those into play. They go, well, thank you very much for the feedback. I got it. I'll get back to you. And nothing happens, and you go out and do the same thing again, and same problems exist. And then they go, let's have a reflective observation meeting and let's talk about it. Really? I'm going to give you the same answer I gave you last time that you took no action on and didn't authorize us to change it, right? So why do we keep doing this? This is crazy. This is where abstract conceptualization stage is critical, because in that change, a leader has to have the moral courage to make the decision, say, okay, we're implementing steps 3, 5, and 7. Let's do it. And then we update the documents, and then we go out and we do active experimentation. We come back around where a concrete experience occurred. We go back to reflexive observation. How did that work? Oh, well, that 3, 5, it worked great. 7, it was really kind of weird. This is what I saw. That's what I saw. When you have a team, when you're dealing with change, who can move through this cycle successfully, you will solve things much quicker. You will have collective thoughts coming to the table. Everybody has a stake in the game, and they're working as a team to solve things. They are building resilience among this team right now, okay? And they are sharing learning, and that's empowering a team to really know. As a leader, here's how I knew I had reached the right point. You know how as a leader, sometimes you get called to that short meeting from your boss, and that short meeting ends up lasting 2 hours, and it's not really a short meeting? Okay. I would come back from the short meeting, and I would have a supervisor and a deputy site manager come up to me and say, hey, Mark, here's what we just experienced. We found this. We pulled everybody into the conference room. We huddled up. here's what we found, X, Y, and Z. We think if we do A and B, that'll improve things. We were waiting for you to get back to see, hey, can we implement that? Yeah, sounds good. Let's give it a try. Let's see what happens. And then they would do it. That's how you know that it's clicking, because in absence of me being in a short meeting, they can solve these problems on their own, and then we start moving forward. So when it deals with change, Vince, which is a really great question, I think, change is one of those things that some people say, well, if we have some change. If you're in an organization, don't ever say if we have change. You need to plan for when you're going to have change, because change is inevitable in every organization. Okay, it's just going to happen. So having the right mindset is important.
And I'm so glad that you brought up change, because we have dealt with change.
Mm-hmm.
This whole entire year and a half has been a
Mm-hmm.
whirlwind of change. Strategies around hiring have changed.
Mm-hmm.
Dealing with customers and future employees have changed. And so it's something that we deal with, but we don't often like, right? We just don't like change. But we have to face it. So, what are some of the strategies that you build around change itself?
Yeah, I think when you deal with change, there's really two scenarios I think you're facing. One is what we like to call, well, I mean, in academia, it's called this. So this is what it is. It is first of all, am I dealing with a single loop or a double loop learning situation? What am I encountering right now with this change? So there's two types of changes. One can be as simple as you have a current process. Everybody's used to it, right? And this is important because when you are building building resilient teams, one of the things that you have to do is have team learning. You also, that team over time will develop what is known as collective efficacy, so they can pretty much approximate their ability to accomplish the task or mission because they're working together. And through that, one of the things that you do is it a single loop? For example, we have a process, we're going to change a couple of steps in there, we're going to handle this change, that's easy, we're going to do it, we go through the cycle like I just mentioned, and then we go, woohoo, it works, that is perfect, oh my gosh, yeah, that was great here, it was great here, it was great there, everybody signs up, this is awesome, it's working great, perfect. That single loop learning, it does require some adjustments mentally, because people, and especially teams over time, they develop what's known as a shared mental model, right, on how work gets done. And they start kind of thinking not as one, but together they become one, and they understand how to get stuff done. This is how we reach success. But I'm going to change a bit of that. We're going to tweak it. We're going to add some different steps. They're all on board because it's making life better. The second way to handle change is what is known as a double loop learning situation, okay? When you deal with double loop learning, that's significantly different. And the reason is because instead of like going to your strategies and techniques and say, this is how and what we do for single loop learning, and then look at the results and what we get out of it, and then making those tweaks, what I'm doing in a double loop may be taking whatever mental model you had about the way work gets done, and you're going all the way back to your assumptions and belief and asking the question, why do we do this? Why do we do that? Can anybody, okay, what are we trying to solve here again? What's our objective? Okay, you really go back to the very base of it, because you're getting ready to create a whole new process that the why we do it has changed. You're doing it for a different reason now. So the process you had doesn't work. And you have to go all the way back to that. And then you work with new strategies and techniques about the how and what we do. And then you move forward to say, okay, what do we get on the output? Got it. That can take a little longer to go click with the team. And especially if you have people on your team that have entrenched mental models. How many times have you heard this when something changes with a group or a team or your organization that says, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why we got to change? I like what we do here. Ugh. And they kind of grumble. Nobody likes change. I mean, unless it means, you're instead of a Subaru, you're going to drive a Bentley tomorrow. Okay, that's a good change. But other than that, the way I work and the way I do things and the way we operate, I know it, and I've become very proficient at it. You're getting ready to turn my world upside down. So you have to work through that with people. You have to be able to listen to them and what their concerns are and address it. So when you're dealing with change, the first question is, which one am I dealing with? Is it a single loop? We're going to tweak some existing processes, or are we getting ready to change the whole process and turn it upside down? I don't know, but there is an approach for each one. And I think if you take that approach and your team's engaged in solving and creating and moving forward, then the buy-in and the understanding becomes greater.
Buy-in and understanding does become greater. And of course, to your point, what type of change is it, single loop or double loop, but very much so. And folks, he shared a lot and a lot of wisdom based on what they're doing in this building leaders program. So folks that are intrigued and want to know more and learn more, how did they get a hold of you, Mark, or the RBLP program itself?
Yeah, that's a great question, Vince. I appreciate you asking that. Our website is the resiliencebuildingleaderprogram.com. Now, if you say, wow, Mark, just like Vince said, that's a whole lot. Here's a real easy tip. Go to Google, put in RBLP, hit enter. The first 4 or 5 pages are going to be links to the Resilience Building Leader Program. Okay, that is the easiest and quickest way for people to remember it. So Romeo, Bravo, Lima, Papa. Okay, once I hit that, enter, first 4 or 5 pages, pick a link. It's going to take you to the Resilience Building Leader Program website. That way you have an opportunity to look at the different certifications, and there are requirements to qualify, to be found eligible for each certification to pursue, and take a look at that. And then if you're interested, by all means, submit your application and get your feedback as to what level you're found qualified for. And then we can work with you and plan accordingly and work to get you started to earn that certification.
Absolutely, folks. You heard it first from Mark here, the VP, doing some great things. Master Guns retired from the Marines. We thank you for being here. For folks that want to know how to get a hold of the Leadership Void, we are at theleadershipvoid@gmail.com. And for those who want to reach us, ask us questions, want to know about more leaders, have definitely scenarios, want to pros in our show, send us an email. And also we are on LinkedIn, Enrique or Vince. So that's one way of reaching us. 2 other things we want to mention. As you know, we're doing reaching our goal of the 200 subscriber. And the book that Enrique is going to show you, which is the Standing Oath Salute version. It's the salute version, which is the military of gratitude and appreciation for Scott McGregor. He was one of our guests as well. Signed, autograph, YouTube channel, Leadership Void, submit, thank you. I am subscribed, and you're entered to that drawing. So that's as easy as peasy. And you have 71 episodes to view on. And speaking of viewing on, we continue on this great journey. Next week, we're talking to a mil spouse in the military community, doing some wonderful things out there. So looking forward for that. But today, we're just honored and privileged to have Mark Holman here today. And it was a pleasure, sir. I hope you have a great day and continue building that resilience.
Absolutely. Thanks, Vince. Thanks, Enrique. I really appreciate it. It was great being here.